There we go. All right. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, Rob, Priscilla, Paul, Martin, Lynn, Lori, Diana, Christine. And thank you so much, Doug, for taking the time out of your night to speak to us. It's been a while since we've had a meeting here. We had some past presenters have cancellations at last minutes the past few months, so I'm very pleased to have you on here, Doug, and get to know more about what you've got to offer. You know, with this Myth is Canada. Like I got your information from the Edmonton Common Law Group from Carla. And at first, originally, she started telling me about how you deal with allodial titles, and I'm sure you'll go into some allodial titles and kind of give us an idea of what those are. But then when I started going into your looking at some interviews that you had, I watched the 2-part series of what is the Myth of Canada Explained. I'll be honest, I had to rewatch because I couldn't actually. There's so much programming current with our society and in our culture that I the mind wasn't accepting what you were saying. How could this be? Like, I'm aware of I'm aware of as much as I can be at this time. I feel like I'm aware of the government corruption and the criminal activity. But this is wild. Like, this is unbelievable.
That's due to the fact that you were indoctrinated through elementary schools and high schools, and they taught you what they wanted you to believe, not what was factual information. Because if they taught you the factual information, you probably would have said, wait a minute, you guys are illegal and unlawful, and you can't do that. So we got a set of gallows over here. We're going to march you up there, and we're going to, because at the end of the day, it's coming to a head right now with this, with the way that they've done the magic virus, and are pushing to do these more lockdowns. I just came out of Ontario. I drove out of there about a week ago, and Doug E. Ford had just put a full lockdown. He called it the emergency break across all of Ontario. And I'm driving across, and Manitoba was okay, and then I'm coming into Saskatchewan. And Mo in Saskatchewan here, working with the mayor of Regina, decided that it would be a good idea to do a full lockdown again and close all small businesses. But there's an agenda here. What they're doing, what they're trying to do is get rid of all the small and medium-sized businesses and have only certain businesses that are allowed to be there, Walmart and Amazon, et cetera, and make sure that everybody goes broke. Because after all, Klaus Schwab was him and his fourth industrial, it's called the Fourth Reich. He says, you will own nothing and you will be happy. Well, if you own nothing, what are you? You're a slave. And that's what they were looking to do. They want to have 500 million manageable slaves on planet Earth and eliminate 7.2 billion people. And so their financial system is collapsing, and we might see it collapse here in the first week of May, according to some bankers. They're feeling that they might not get out of the month of May without a full economic collapse. I don't think so. I think that we're going to see it last just a little bit longer. I think this fall might be the bigger problem for them. Usually, because people go through the summertime and so forth, there's not a lot of pressure on the economic system through the summertime because people are on vacation. But come fall, you can start to see a lot of pressure come back. There's a lot of holidays, banking holidays and vacations throughout the summer. So I don't know. I'm not Nostradamus. I cannot predict the future, but I can certainly watch it happen. And it's fun. So you guys, let me ask you guys a question. Are you a common law group and you meet to discuss common law?
We are not a common law group, Doug. We are a group of just like-minded people that get together, once a month. We were getting together once a month in person before all this stuff happened. So we've just been meeting on Zoom, but we're a group. We teach dowsing, and we have lots of very, very very good dowsers, people who've been dowsing for many, many decades, for many, many different things, a lot for health. You've probably heard of like water witching, dowsing for water in the ground. Yeah. And so it's a dying art. It's a dying art. So it's very, very interesting, to say the least. And so, yeah, we're just a group of like-minded people. We get together and we haven't had any dowsing lessons on for a little while here, but our main thing is we bring in guest speakers to just any ways that we can expand in the mind, the body, with health, with topics like these, right? These deep conversations that aren't happening in your regular online groups and in person. So we're all about expansion, growing, getting into those esoteric topics and the stuff that people aren't really talking about.
Well, also topics that will affect you directly, and
absolutely,
and your families and so forth. I understand that. I'm not going to. It would take we would be here for about 3 hours if I spoke just strictly on the Myth is Canada.
Mm-hmm.
What I'll do is I'll kind of give you a Coles Note version without going into too much detail, and because we don't have, I'm not going to bring up the various documents on screen. That would just take literally about 3 hours to go through. But it's all there on the Myth is Canada website. You can download the documents off the timeline and read them yourself. And basically what I'll just kind of cut the mountaintops off to make it a little bit easier and more palatable for people to understand. And we have videos up on BitChute. We have videos up on YouTube. We have videos up on Brighteon, Rumble, and so forth. Especially the Brighteon, there's about 46 videos up there that are more specific for the Myth is Canada stuff. And you can go there and spend the next month or two watching and rewatching all the videos. I'm actually quite proud because it's quite a good body of work. And anyway, let's get started. I'm going to ask everybody 2 questions. The first question is, does anybody believe Canada confederated in 1867? And you can turn on your mics and just say yes or no, because we've got a small group here tonight. So anybody believe in Canada's confederation in 1867?
I'll be the first one to say I'll be the first one to say I thought so before I started diving into your stuff.
Okay. Well, or not. I mean, do you believe it or not? Do you believe that Canada?
I do.
And okay, and you are?
I'm Lori.
Thank you, Lori. I noticed you don't have a camera.
Well, growing up being a Canadian, and my dad fought for World War II, and I'm a very strong Canadian, and so I do believe in it.
My stepfather and my father both fought in World War II. Go ahead. That's Priscilla. Did you want to say something?
That's what we were taught, but I have friends that have been investigating this, and for lack of time, I haven't done that.
Okay. Well, that's okay. I'll talk a little bit about how this confederation thing did or did not come about. The second question I have is, do you believe Canada has a constitution? Anybody?
Again, that's what we were taught.
Okay. But do you think we do? We have one. In 1982, do you think Pierre Elliott Trudeau brought a constitution to Canada? Anybody? Okay. Everybody's very quiet tonight. Okay. Excuse me. It's very dry here in Alberta right now.
Yeah, I just unmuted our audio there.
Oh, good.
This is Eva and Ron here.
Hi, Ron.
And I just assumed that we had a constitution and that was all good. Never thought about it.
Well, tonight we're going to cut the tops off the mountains, and I'm going to start with 1864, 1865, a delegation was sent from Canada at that time to England with a document called the Kingdom of Canada Bill. And within that group was a gentleman by the name of John A. Macdonald. And they went over and visited a guy called Lord Carnarvon. And they stayed in his home for a year, because at that time you've traveled across the ocean in a ship. And they gave Lord Carnarvon the Kingdom of Canada Bill. Now, the Kingdom of Canada Bill was basically the Quebec resolutions, the 72 resolutions. And the bill basically was going to allow Canada over time to seat a de jure government under Confederation. And so Lord Carnarvon was a very good host, and he hosted his people. But he also, during that timeline, the British Empire was the bad guy in the War of Northern Aggression with the United States. They supported the Confederacy, and they lost. And the United States wanted to punish them, so they had to scramble, and because they were fearful that they may be invaded. And the American military, some of them, after they were discharged, were private military, invaded Ontario and did some damage. And that impetus pushed the British Empire to sit down at the table with them to do the Treaty of Washington. But that took several years. So in the meantime, what they did instead is that they created a document called the British North American Act. Now, Lord Carnarvon took the Kingdom of Canada Bill to his friend, Lord Thring, who was the Secretary of the Treasury of the House of Lords. And Lord Thring got together with a group, and they went ahead and they took this, and they actually wrote the British North American Act, which had nothing to do with the Kingdom of Canada Bill. But the top page of the British North American Act, which he put on there, made it look like they were passing the Kingdom of Canada Bill in the House of Lords. And it didn't go through any readings in the House of Lords. It was passed in one day through the House of Lords with that top page on there. And when he went down to the House of Commons, where it took 3 days to go through, he tore the top sheet off, and then it was exposed, British North American Act, and the preamble and so forth. Do you have a question, Ron?
No.
Oh, okay. Because I will respond to your questions while we're anyway. So
Carol, I'm having trouble hearing you. Is your sound low, or is it something to do with my computer?
I would advise that you might want to turn up your. Is anybody else having trouble hearing me? Yeah, I did a sound check before I went on the air here tonight with the computer and the camera check and so forth.
Okay, I'll keep checking. Thank you.
So he takes it down to the House of Commons, and they don't have any readings of it. They push it through one day, the next day, and the next day, 3 readings, and off he grabs it and goes to the Court and Chancery for royal assent. At which point it's then sent to the Queen Victoria, and she presents it to the very first Governor General for the Dominion of Canada. So what is the Dominion of Canada? It's a united colony. And so in doing so, they were also in negotiations with Hudson's Bay to get the Hudson's Bay use of land out of their charter. And in 1868, the Rupert's Land Act was created. And all of this while they're negotiating, don't forget, with the US for the Treaty of Washington, and I'll get to that in a minute. So they negotiated with Hudson's Bay to give them the use of land, not the land, but actual use of land. 1868, 1869 was the deed of surrender, where they actually were given, the Dominion of Canada was given the land for use, and it's still a united colony for the British Empire. 1870, they created Manitoba. 1871, they created British Columbia, and then there was the Northwest Territories in between. And in order for the Dominion of Canada and the British Empire to claim that land, they actually had to settle it. And I'll circle back. I'm going to do what Jen Psaki comment here. I'm going to circle back to that in a few minutes, but we'll go forward here because in 1871 they signed the Treaty of Washington. Now, the Treaty of Washington created the 49th parallel that we have today, along with the open access to the American people for the St. Lawrence Seaway and full access to all of the Great Lakes. And then on the West Coast, they did a deal where Point Roberts and the San Juan Islands went to the Americans, and so they also had to pay fines, basically, for sinking several hundred ships during the War of Northern Aggression, or what you know as the Civil War in the United States. And so they had to pay what was the equivalent of several $billion today, but it was several $1 million back then. I believe it was $15 million was one fine, and I think the other fine was about almost $4 million. But in today's money, that's several $1 billion because it was actually in gold and silver. Okay, so we get to 1871. I'm going to just jump ahead. So they would issue these letters patent to the Governor Generals as needed. There's an act in 1878 that allowed to do that from committee. And then they instead of going through that whole first process, now they can do it through committee. And basically a Governor General comes back to the committee, hands in his letters patent. They take the top sheet off of it, which was the letter that gave him the letters patent, and they put a new top sheet on it and give it to the next Governor General. So the Governor General, if you read the British North American Act, it's quite interesting. I've read it several, maybe 30, 40 times. I'm going to open this up on my desktop because I want to read something to you. Because a lot of people think, well, the government of Canada, that's our parliament. We got to vote for those guys. And the reality is, if you go down to executive power, that's section 9, section 10. Declaration of executive power in the Queen. The executive government and the authority of and over Canada is hereby declared to continue and be vested in the Queen, Victoria. So the executive government and authority, isn't that interesting? And then you go to section 10, it says the application of provisions referring to the Governor General. The provisions of this act referring to the Governor General extend and apply to the Governor General for the time being of Canada, or the other chief executive officer or administrator for the time being, carrying on the government of Canada on behalf and in the name of the Queen by whatever title she is designated. Isn't that interesting? So he is the government of Canada. And then if we go down to section 12, we can understand, here we go. I'm sorry, section 11, Constitution of the Privy Council for Canada. There shall be a council to aid and advise in the government of Canada. Isn't that interesting? And so section 12 says all powers under acts to be exercised by the Governor General with the advice of the Privy Council or alone. So we think, oh, good, we can vote for a guy to go to a group to go to Ottawa, and they're going to be our government. Not according to their documents, they're not. Turns out the Parliament of Canada is an advisory body to the Privy Council, which is an advisory body to the Government of Canada, the Governor General, and by further extension, the Queen of Canada, which means that they cannot do anything without royal assent. So every single bill that comes out of Parliament must have royal assent. Otherwise, it doesn't become color of law here in Canada. So it makes you think about, wait a minute, what government do we have for the people, by the people? We don't have a government for the people, by the people. And that was, by the way, that's still in place today. This was under a colony, a united colony under the British Empire. We're going back to 1867, 1871, 1890s. the early 1900s up until 1931. And in 1931, we will look at the Statute of Westminster. And the Statute of Westminster was created by the British Parliament to end their colonies and allow those colonies to go ahead and seat de jure governments and then join the Commonwealth. Because without being a de jure government and without being a sovereign nation, they believed at that time that they couldn't be part of the Commonwealth. And so the Statute of Westminster released and ended the Dominion of Canada. So how do we know this? Well, hello?
Oh, hello?
Did you have something?
I accidentally hit the wrong button here,
Okay.
so I can't see you anymore. So I'll see what the heck I did.
Okay.
Oh, there you are.
There I am. So how do we know that it ended the Dominion of Canada? Because at that time, Governor General, who was the Earl of Bessborough, who was given his paper, the British North American Act, letters pat, in March of 1931, went back, because the Statute of Westminster was issued on December 11th, 1931. He went back to England on the 12th and then turned in the British North American Act, and they archived, and there it sat in the archive to this day. The British North American Act was no longer needed because they were no longer going to send a Governor General to the Dominion of Canada to have a united colony. In other words, the Dominion was freed. The land that was held in the court and chancery on behalf of the British Empire was given back, or was given to the people of Canada for a reason. You have to have land under your feet in order to seat a de jure government. So we, the people, actually are the landowners here in Canada. And that was done so that we would hold a constitutional convention back in 1931 and seat a de jure federal authority. Now, we know that that wasn't done because the federal authority that's there today has no land under their feet. In other words, the Parliament buildings that sit in Ottawa today sit on Algonquin land that the federal government pays the province of Ontario the monies of $2.7 million a year to manage for the Algonquin Indians. So and further, I mean, when Trudeau went to get a seat on the Security Council this year at the UN, and he didn't get it. You know why? Because they said the same thing to Harper several years earlier. Canada is not a sovereign nation and cannot have a seat on the Security Council. How crazy is that, right? So I'm just going to plow through. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you can see on the website. I'm going to talk about one thing. In 1952, there's a little bill called the Royal Styles and Titles Act. And basically, the Royal Styles and Titles Act was a command from the Queen of England to the de facto Parliament of Canada at that time to create this act so that the Queen of Canada could declare herself the Queen of Canada. And there's a lot of other things in between this time and then, but I'm not going to spend too much more time. I'm just going to get on to 1982 and the Canada Bill. Canada Bill was created in chambers by the Liberal Party of Canada at that time. No other political party was allowed to participate. So, and they locked them out, basically closed the door, created the Canada Bill. And the Canada Bill was, as you know, taken over to England by a gentleman by the name of Jean Chrétien. Jean Chrétien took it to the English Parliament. The English Parliament went through it, and they created and passed the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and some other things that were done, including creating didn't create the Constitution Act. They just took a photocopy of the British North American Act, crossed out British North American Act and wrote Constitution Act on it, and gave it to Trudeau when he came over. Now, what's interesting is the Queen of England, playing to be the Queen of Canada, wrote a proclamation in 1982, on April of 1982, saying that this would become supreme law subject to Section 59 being repealed. So you go to Section 59 of the Act, and it directs you to Section 58. Section 58 directs you to Section 23(1)(a). 23(1)(a), if it was repealed, would make Canada only one language, English. So guess what province didn't agree? Yeah, I bet you all knew it was Quebec. They still haven't agreed to this day, because that proclamation went on to say, once repealed, a second proclamation will be written by the Governor General and the Great Seal of Canada, and will basically ratify this document, which is the Canada Act. So it's never been ratified. In other words, they've never written a second proclamation. And so the two documents that make up the Canada Act, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and the British North American Act, photocopy, because it's not the original. The original sits in the archives in Great Britain to this day, have never been ratified. In other words, even in their maritime jurisdiction, it's never been ratified. So people say, well, Doug, how do you know we're in maritime jurisdiction? And I say, well, first of all, the Charter of Rights and Freedom is a maritime incorporation document. When you charter something, you incorporate. And how do we know it's maritime? Well, under the Interpretations Act of Canada, which is the highest definition you can have for words that they use in their acts, Canada is defined as, and it says clearly, includes the internal waters and external seas. So when you take the maxim of law that says the inclusion of one is the exclusion of all others, what is Canada? Canada is water. And then you go on to see, okay, well, the Queen of Canada, she must have something here, but you got to go to the Oceans Act to find out where she has jurisdiction. And she has jurisdiction on the sea bed, or all land underwater. Pretty interesting, huh? So how does a Charter of Rights and Freedoms apply to you and I? It doesn't. Where's the Constitution? Well, it's the photocopy of the British North American Act with the British North American Act's name scratched off. How is that the Constitution? I mean, I've asked politicians this. I said, can you please show me another example of a country that has a photocopy that they call a Constitution? And they all cannot. Yeah. Top of that, if you read the British North American Act, it constitutes nothing other than a dictatorship for the Governor General. And so this is what we've been teaching at the Mythos Canada. Now, there's a lot more information in there. I just literally jumped across the mountaintops here. But if you can delve into the documentation that we have up on the website and read it, I don't say anything that I can't prove with their own documentation or the documentation from the, I went to the UK archives. A lot of the stuff is from the UK archives, along with the Canadian archives. So the documentation that you're seeing up there, I didn't create. These things come from the de facto government here in Canada and the British government over in the British Isles. And it took me 12 years to figure it all out. There's some other little things I discovered going across Canada this year, or last November. I was in Regina, and I've been doing land patents in Ontario for, gosh, about 8 or 9, 10 years. I've been helping people update their land patents and take Elodial Title. But I'd made a discovery here. A lady who was on Facebook sent me a link to a government website and said, Doug, have you ever seen this? And I went onto the website. They talked about 2 acts, the Dominion Lands Act and the Homestead Act, both in 1872. And remember when I was talking about the Hudson's Bay Charter and how they had to settle the land to make claim to it? This is why these 2 acts were created. And I discovered in what that happened is 625,000 land patents were issued in the provinces of Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta. And the average size was 160 acres. So if you look at the land that is under land patent in Manitoba, it's almost half of Manitoba. It is 2/3 of Saskatchewan, and it is 2/3 of Alberta. And I've been teaching people, this is, that's why I'm here in Saskatoon. I've been on a speaking tour called Defund the Government Legally and Lawfully. And by helping people find, I created a booklet, and we have it for, because I don't charge people, I don't sell things, everything, because I don't believe in taxation. So we don't have a GST number. So everything works off of donations. And so I created this booklet, and it's basically a step-by-step process. There's a little bit of history. I do definitions of words, and then it's a step-by-step process of where to go in your province, let it be British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, or Ontario, to find, and then how to create the package to take it from the land patent up into your, I use the common law name because it gives a complete distinction from who you are to them as the fiction. And so I've been doing that now for the last 2 months, I guess. A lot of declarations are being written, and I've been doing, I've got a whole bunch more to do. A lot of people are jumping on board with this, and they're just fed up with what's going on with the government. And Elodial Title gives them land ownership in the, it's the high, I'll take a second here. Let's open the booklet and I'll give you a taste of what I'm not a taste, I'm sorry. I'll read the definition. So I see people there going, what the heck is Doug talking about with Elodial Title? Elodial Title is a concept in some systems of property law. It describes a situation where real property, land, buildings, and fixtures is owned free and clear of any encumbrances, including liens, mortgages, and tax obligations. Elodial title is unalienable in that it cannot be taken by any operation of law for any reason whatsoever. In common legal use, elodial title is used to distinguish absolute ownership of land by individuals from feudal ownership, where property ownership is dependent on the relationship to the lord or the sovereign. Allodial lands are the absolute property of their owner and not subject to any service or acknowledgement to a superior, and allodial title is the opposite of a feudal tenure, such as fee simple. And then I define fee simple is a fee without limitation to any class of heirs or restrictions on transfer of ownership. All it does, it allows you to sell it, and it allows you to will it upon your death. But it's still a feudal tenant. And how do we know that? Do you pay property taxes? And if you stop paying property taxes, what would happen? Exactly, they'd come and seize your home, and that would be the end of it for you. And so, because the Mythos Canada information is a massive bowl, and it's many, 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 many mouthfuls to digest and understand what's going on there. In this discovery, with the land patents and allodial title and so forth, it's an intermediate step so that people can understand what law of the land is, which is common law, and allodial title, which is land under your feet. That's the only way you can have common law, is with land under your feet. Without land under your feet, there is no common law. And so that's what I've been teaching people and helping people do this, go through this process, which is a lot of fun. It's been keeping me very busy. I kid you not. But it's good for the people to understand that, because the next step from having land under your feet is to realize and recognize that you need to seat a de jure government in each of the provinces to protect your unalienable rights. And because they, as far as they're concerned, they own you. And they can do whatever they want, including intrude into your body with vaccines. And this is a horrible thing and this is their final push. They're pot committed. It's a poker term, by the way. Pot committed means that you're holding a losing hand. You know you're holding a losing hand. You're going to go all in anyways because you've put so much money into the pot that now you got such little money left in front of you, you just throw all in. And that's what they've done. They're pot committed. They're throwing all in. There is no plan B. There is only their plan A. And if their plan A doesn't work, they're going to flip the table over and cause chaos. And that's coming. And so one of the most secure ways to hold your land is in allodial. And so people also ask me, says, well, Doug, if we seat a de jure government, what about the UN? What about the globalists? What happens to the IMF? What happens to all these treaties and so forth that were signed with the World Bank and the IMF and then NAFTA and all these other things? And I said, well, they were all signed by an illegal and unlawful government. And you can't sign a contract with the mafia and expect to have it enforced. You can't sign a criminal with a criminal and expect to enforce the contract. And so all those contracts become null and void, including any contracts that the government entered into, let it be here there in Alberta or here in Saskatchewan, with the Chinese government for whatever the Chinese governments have been purchasing here. They all become null and void. And the debt, what about the debt, Doug? What about the debt? Well, if you're bringing law of the land back, fiat currencies don't exist in a common law jurisdiction. And so all of the debt belongs to Mr. Trudeau and his ilk. All the politicians that created it's called odious debt. And it actually belongs to them. We are not responsible for it. They are. And that's where we are. As far as Canada goes, they're getting very close now. Because the exposure is coming more and more and more. More people are not believing. Yes, there are a lot of people still taking vaccines, but we have 38 million people here in this country. I believe the last time I looked, there was just over 4 million people who had been vaccinated. And they're very scared because in Ontario, this is why he's done his lockdowns again. Basically, the vaccine centers were empty for days and weeks at a time, and nobody was taking it. So Dougie Ford decided that if you don't want me to lock you down again, go get your vaccines. And so they had a couple of centers where people went down, and one in Cloverdale Mall, I think it was Mississauga. They had to turn people away because people were scared, not of the virus, of being locked down again and losing their businesses. So, any questions?
Yeah, Doug, I got a question. So, you said you've like have you approached like with all this, because I know on your website, because I was looking at it prior, you're on your website, you do have a beautiful, which I think you've already touched on, a beautiful timeline with everything, with a whole bunch of information, all the acts and which you've talked about a few, you've breezed through a few, but I know you have a beautiful package and a timeline with all the documents. So for people who want to get even deeper, they can go onto your Mythic Canada website. They can look at this in order, in timeline, in sequence, and find all that information that you didn't just create out of your own out of thin air. This is stuff that you've pulled from resources and right from their source and just compiled it onto your website for people to see themselves. So with all that information, like I know this is the movement you're doing, is you're pushing the education. You're just trying to educate people, because that's the power, right? That knowledge is a power, right?
Right.
But have you brought this? How high up have you brought this? Have you confronted, people in Parliament, the peoples in the government? Have you confronted them with this? And if so, what was the responses?
No, I've never actually confronted anybody with this, simply because why? Why would I go up to the government that's a de facto government and tell them what they're doing is wrong? They know they're doing it wrong. They don't need to be told what they're doing. I'll tell you a quick little story. I did show a couple of years ago down at that channel, and I was up. My friend and I said after the show, I said, well, let's go get a beer. So we go up to the bar up the street, and we're sitting and discussing the interview that I just did on the Myth is Canada stuff. And there was a gentleman at the table next to me who said, he made a comment, and I said, excuse me. And he goes, oh, don't worry, Doug, that's okay. And I said, well, okay. And you are, and he introduced himself as a federal judge. And I said, oh, well, this is that interesting. He says, I got my friend down at that channel, Hugh Riley. Why would you be interested to do a sit down and a debate on a live stream? And he goes, and he's about to answer me, and the lady that was sitting beside him, she leans forward. She says, no, we're not gonna involve in that. And I said, well, and you are. And she introduced herself as the Crown Prosecutor in federal court. And I said, well, why not? And she came right out. She says, because you're right. I was just absolutely floored. I didn't know what to say. It was, what? And they know. So what would be the point of tipping at windmills on my side? It's not them that need to know. It's you guys that need to know. They already know what we're doing, and that they're doing is illegal and unlawful. But you people don't. And that's why I do what I do. I don't preach, I teach. I don't push this on anybody. If people are interested like yourselves, I'm happy to come in. I'm happy to prime the pump for you to go and do more reading and research on the stuff. Like I say, the website is very complete. If you don't like reading, watch the videos. I go through them in there, and it took me, this is the 4th year, but it took me a full year, 2019, to create these videos and make them palatable for the general population. Still, people say, well, you use such big words. And I'm like, grab a dictionary. I'm only using the words that I understand when I speak to this stuff. And if I was to change that in my own vocabulary, it wouldn't sound right coming out of my mouth. So I have to use what I use. But the words are there for a reason. We are all tricked through words. When a cop reads you your rights and says, do you understand? He's not asking if you comprehend. He's asking if you stand under his jurisdiction, because they need your consent. But that's, I don't want to get into that. We're not about remedy at the Myth is Canada. We are about solution. And remedy, they close the doors. When somebody goes through and they figure it out, then the de facto government will close the door for the next person coming through. And so remedy doesn't work for very long. The only remedy we have is solution, and that is for us to come together. And I've said this time and time again, everybody has a seat at the table and everybody has a voice. And I don't care if it's LGBTQ, Antifa, Black Lives Matter, the Progressive Conservative Party, the Liberal Party, the mechanics, the fry cooks, the waitresses, the academics in university. Everybody is included in this process, period. Everybody. And they all have a voice and they all have a seat at the table. And whether their voices are heard, and whether they're paid attention to by the rest of the people, it's all in their presentation. I've spoken to many Native Indian groups and told them the same thing, except I went through the Indian Act with them and basically how they got screwed in 1983 with their proclamation. And I said, look, we're all equal. Everybody is equal. We are the human race. We are not racist because we are humans, all of us. The color of your skin is not a race, it's a color. Where you're from is not a race, it's a region or it's a country. So we are the human race, and we better all learn to get along, because the people at the top want division, want derision, et cetera, et cetera. And why? Because they require power and they require you to be scared of them. And that's this social distancing. This can't go out, you can't meet. Well, you're going to meet on Zoom, but you don't have the human contact, right? In doing this. and that's what they want. And the further, and this is why I go to these rallies and I work with these people. I work with everybody from across Canada. I don't know if you saw my roundtables, but I invite everybody to come on to these roundtables. Doesn't matter what group you're with, you have a voice, you have a seat at the table. That you need to be heard, because other people are attracted to hugs over masks, whereas other people might be attracted to Stand Up Canada Solutions or Children's Health Canada, Children's Health Defence Canada. It doesn't matter. We all have to get together, period. Otherwise, divided we will fall. United we stand. And we have no choice. They're pushing and pushing and pushing. John F. Kennedy once said, if you can't have a peaceful revolution, you will surely have a bloody one. And I do not want to see people being slaughtered in the streets because of this. And there's a very easy way to fix this. We've had the right since 1931 to hold constitutional conventions, elect our delegates, and create a constitution. The pen is always going to be mightier than the sword, and we've had that ability since 1931. They just didn't tell us.
So what's the, educating people? That's obviously that's the number one thing. I see on your website there are some people delegated to. I saw some contacts in Alberta, and
Yeah.
I imagine you have them throughout the provinces of where the Albertans can, speak to them directly and see what they've got going on. What's the plan? With all of this, so you educate people, and then what's next? When people are educated, then what's
what we're trying to do through education is create leaders, because we at the Memphis Canada cannot do what needs to be done. It needs to be done by the people for the people, and that's the only way this works. And this is why it's so important to educate people. And they'll educate people, and leaders will come out of these groups or out of this. You'll create committees that you will find delegates and so forth. In the process, yes, it takes a while for me to do this because of this. What's going on with this magic virus now? 2019, we were just cooking the gas. It was amazing how many people were kind of getting on board and trying to learn this stuff. 2020 came along. And it was like, and this fear, the number one thing that these guys were very successful at is instilling fear in the population. And then people are so busy, scared to death of a virus that doesn't exist, because even the government says it has a 99.8% survival rate. Well, the flu had a 95% survival rate. So what the hell? What's going on with you people? Wake up. Read the side of the box. Not you guys. And so this is because of lack of education. People have decided, I'm thinking, I was lucky. I went to private school when I was in high school. I was able to go to private school. And the one thing that they did teach us in private school was critical thinking. If you can't show the facts, then you haven't done enough research. So I've always been driven that way to not take the word of the government. I go do my own research and see, because how do you tell when a politician is lying to you? Their lips are moving. There's another joke from 2020. What's the most washed part of the human body? The brain. That's not funny. It's sad is what that is. But yeah, and so that's where we are now. So we're still and the intermediate step is dealing people with land patents and learning about common law, learning about everybody I talk to about these land patents, I say freedom isn't free. There is a cost to freedom, and it's eternal vigilance. You have to stay on top of this. Just because you have allodial title doesn't mean that they won't try to come after you. You have to stay on top of this. And you defeat them in 1974. Well, there's the court case was done in 1970 where the Ontario Attorney General went after a man on Lake Erie and made claim that Ontario owned the beach to the water's edge, and yet the man had a land patent that said he owned the land to the water's edge. And the original judge in the first court said he agreed with the land patent holder. So the AG was not satisfied with that. He took it to, in 1972, took it to the Supreme Court of Ontario, and the 3 justices on the Supreme Court of Ontario found in favor of the land patent holder. And in 1974, it was presented at the Supreme Court of Canada. And the Supreme Court of Canada, all 5 justices on that bench agreed that the land patent holder owned that land. And the AG in Ontario was very upset. But now we have precedent in the Canadian court system that proves that land patents, once allodial title is taken, is absolute ownership. And by the way, if people are interested, we work off of donations. And for $50 or donation or more, I send you the booklet and the addendums for each province now. So if you're interested in doing that, you can email me at themythiscanada@yahoo.com. I make it real simple. It's comprehensive. People have told me that, wow, this is easy the way you've just described it. And I say, yeah, wait till you start doing the research. And they go, oh, and they're right. It's not easy, but I don't do it for you. I have people that will help you. Carla up at Carolot Acres. She has Sherry and Paul. They help people in Alberta. I have Les out in Saskatchewan. He helps people there. Sean and myself do the Ontarian people. I do the Manitoba people myself because I've been working, and we have people in British Columbia that help people out there. So it's not that you get, just because you get the booklet, you don't, I have direct contact information for myself in the booklet. And I take care, I answer every email, I answer every phone call. If I need to talk to somebody, I'll send them my number so that they can talk to me, call me back. And I'm very much involved with helping people get this done. And I know the other people are as well. And it's really well worth taking a look at if you're interested. By the way, I'm not trying to sell you anything.
Quick, a little question about the allodial title, Doug. So do you have to get a allodial title? Do you have to be stationed on that land? Like what prevents someone to start trying to get a land that maybe they don't live on and stuff like that, and trying to get titles for stuff that they're not stationed on?
So the way it works is this. So the land patent is the first. You have the Platts map, which is the survey map, the original survey map, the land patent, and then the chain of title in your name. The top of the chain has to be, if you own the house that you're living in, that has to be there. And it's usually in fee simple. So you're the top of the pile or the top of the sandwich. And only then can we make declaration. And it's called the Declaration of Assignment, Assignees Declaration of Acceptance of the land patent. And basically, it's a document that I actually do for the people because it has to be very precise. And what it does, it brings the title of the land patent up into your common law name, and then it's completed. But that you have to show chain of title. In other words, you have to show that from the land patent to your fee simple title, there's all of the titles in between. And in some cases, there's 1 or 2. In other cases, I had one person. I have about 32 titles that were between the land patent and them. But on average, there's 4 or 5 titles in between. 32 was like, whoa, holy crap, I've never seen one of these before. So, well, it's a very unusual. But like I say, in the booklet, I give the history, I give examples of what a land patent is, what a land grant is, what letters patent are, et cetera, et cetera. And so, like I say, it's fairly comprehensive. It's only 25 pages. I created it from about 350 pages of research. I condensed it down into something that, well, my friend's 9-year-old read it, he understood. So there you go. I wanted to be comprehensive. I didn't want to go all over the world, all over the place with it. So, but yeah, I'm sorry.
Can I just ask a question? When you're talking about land titles and stuff, does this just apply to farmland, or are we talking?
Nope. City of Calgary. I've done. I'm doing 3 declarations in the city of Calgary with people who have houses right downtown in the city under land patents. Land patents were across 2/3 of Alberta, about 60 miles north of Edmonton. They stopped issuing them. The entire city of Calgary is under land patents. The entire city of Edmonton. Well, there actually, I shouldn't say that. In South Edmonton, it was Enoch Reserve and Papa Chase Reserve, and there is a dispute on lands there. That's why the old Edmonton Airport has never been redeveloped, because their Papa Chase Reserve, and it's in court now because well, I don't know all the facts, but they were conned out of it back in the late 1800s by a couple of school teachers that taught at the reserve schools. And so that came under, doesn't come under land patents. But Northern Edmonton, most of that is under land patents. I'm actually, when I get back to Edmonton, I've got 3 declarations to write for 3 people in Northern Edmonton that have a land patent there. So it's a little hit and miss in some places. If you're close to the railroad tracks, unless it's a CP rail track, you won't find a land patent. If you're because you'll look at when you start looking, you'll understand what I'm saying. If it's Hudson's Bay land, there won't be a land patent underneath that, because the Hudson's Bay was given up to 50,000 acres in the deed of surrender that they could have, but they took it in fee simple, not in allodial title. And what's the other one? Schools. It's a 36 square block. I put it all in the booklet for people to see and understand.
Yeah, this is all pretty new stuff to me. When you buy a house and a lot, you think that's it forever, as long as you pay your taxes. But you're saying that maybe not.
Well, and the difference being that you're paying property taxes, you're not paying land taxes. So what is property? People don't understand what property is. Property is all the improvements to land. That's where they're taxing you. They're not taxing you on the land. They're taxing you on the sidewalk that leads up to your front door, on the driveway, on the lawn that you put in, on the garden in the back, and the house. And if you have an outbuilding, all of that is considered property. Any improvements to the land is property, and hence property taxes. And people say, well, Doug, what about this raw land out in the middle of Saskatchewan? I said, is there a pathway onto it? Oh yeah, hence property. It's improvement to the land. Mm-hmm. So that's the trick.
Yeah,
and
so that goes to hell. And as we were predicting here, and then they decide they can take over your property. Well, this would prevent that?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, without your permission, they can't even step on your property. It's called criminal trespass. And by the way, criminal trespass is not a ticket. It's a minimum. It's not a ticket. It's a minimum 1 year to 5 years in jail.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There's a big difference between getting a ticket for trespass at Home Depot for $200 and criminally trespassing on allodial title property. That is big no-no. So there's a process that we go through to inform the police and inform the city or the municipality that you've got to take an allodial title and you've updated the land patent.
Okay, so once, how farmers are having a lot of trouble right now with people coming onto their land and taking what they want and everything. So if they had a allodial title, they'd have a lot better results there.
Oh, absolutely. I just did one, a land patent in Manitoba for, it was 15,000 hectares or 15,000 acres or something like that. It's huge.
So if somebody wants to come in to a farm yard and steal everything and you shoot the guy, you might be in bigger trouble.
No, because you hold a allodial title, you have the right to shoot.
Oh, okay. This is good.
I would suggest, I suggest to people, please don't shoot them.
Yeah,
At least not in the head or the chest. You know, you might want to shoot them in the leg and then hog tie them.
Under duress. What happened? Can you tell me, when you say defund the government, can you?
Well, because you're no longer paying property taxes. Property taxes no longer apply to you because your property is sitting on allodial titled land.
Oh.
Yeah.
So
So how can they, you become the queen? How do you tax the queen? You're the sovereign.
Oh.
That's common law.
Uh-huh. So, but you still have to pay for the tax of the house and improvements on the house.
No, man, nothing.
So I live in Chestermere.
Mhm.
So I wouldn't be paying any taxes.
Correct. You can make a contract with the city to give you services, or you could privately get those services from somebody else. And I'll give you a quick example. I have a friend in Ontario. He lives in a really nice area called Rosedale, and his house is, I think they valued it this year at $5 million, and they sent him his tax bill for the year, $92,000.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And so a couple of years ago, when he had a tax bill of $85,000, we decided we were going to sit down, and he and I went through it, and we figured out how much he actually used in services from the city. And it turned out to be $5,000. So $80,000 was what they put in their pocket.
Mm-hmm.
So he's actually, this year, he's going through the process locating if there's a land patent under there, because he wants to do allodial title now. I actually just met with him about 2 weeks ago. He's telling me he's read the booklet. And he's going, God Almighty, Doug, this is I get $92,000. It's going to get even more.
How did you say we can get the booklet?
Email me at themythiscanada@yahoo.com.
At yahoo.com.
.com.
Okay.
And I'll send you the process on how to donate, and then once you do that, then it's a PDF file that I send out, so it's an attachment.
Okay.
Oh yeah, right. I forgot we got chat here. Okay, it's been a while since I've been online.
So
on a Zoom call anyway.
Yeah, I just want to clarify. So when you say if there's a land patent, like you said, some of Edmonton has it, some like it's kind of iffy depending on the locations. So when you say that there's a land patent, what you're referring to is that there's a potential to get an allodial title for like so land patent. There has to be a land patent for you to be able to get the allodial title, correct?
Correct, absolutely.
Okay, and how does one see if there's a land patent? Obviously, we get that information from you, but is there another?
Well, actually, it's in the booklet. We give for Alberta. There's the various websites that because we're in lockdown now, and it's silly. If we weren't in lockdown, this process would take about 10 days. Now that we're in lockdown, because the offices are closed in some cases, sometimes they're open only but not to the public. In Saskatchewan, they're open to the public by appointment only, and it takes about 2 weeks to get an appointment to go in there, and so forth. So the websites is the easiest way to do it, and then you go onto the websites. You just and it's free to in most cases to see if there is a land patent there before the expenses start coming in. And when I talk about expenses in Alberta, to get a certified copy of the land patent is $10. To get the chain of title. Copies, not certified. You don't need certified copies of the chain of title. The only certified copy of the chain of title is yours in fee simple at the top, and they're about $2 a copy in Alberta, or $2 or $3 a copy in Alberta. British Columbia, they're a little more expensive. Saskatchewan is about the same price as Manitoba and so forth. So when you look at this whole process of getting that part of it done, most people don't spend more than $100 if there's a land patent there. And the nice thing in Saskatchewan, they send you these great big beautiful printouts of the original land patent with the seal on the top, and the writing is beautiful. You could frame them, but they're $33 for one of those. Certified copy. I thought that was kind of cool because they're beautiful documents. They're handwritten.
In our small town here, then, if they're not under land patents, what are they?
It'd be a land grant.
Land grant.
Yeah, that would be a land grant under fee simple.
And so you can do anything about that then?
No, ma'am, not a thing.
Sure.
Until we see the de jure government, and then you can go have that, because it has to be a sovereign, can issue a land patent.
Oh, okay.
And the federal government and the provincial governments cannot issue land patents because they're not sovereign.
Oh,
They have no land under their feet, hence no common law courts.
okay. Interesting. Very interesting.
It's a brainful.
Yeah. No, I'm in a situation where I'm one of those people like yourself that wouldn't get a vaccine if unless I was hogtied.
It's not a vaccine.
I know it's not a vaccine, anyways. And so, but I'm finding that people around me, a lot of old friends and that think you're nuts because you're not. What do you mean you're not getting the vaccine? So you feel like, especially under lockdown or isolation, somewhat that we've been under, you do start feeling a little ostracized. Yes. So how are you finding the whole thing? How do you deal with people that aren't getting that wonder why you're not getting the vaccine?
Well, because it's not their freaking business.
Yeah.
It's nobody's business what I do with my body other than mine and my doctors. And
I just say it's an experimental vaccine. I'm not ready to.
well, it's not even an experimental vaccine. According to Pfizer, it's chemotherapy experimental drugs. That's what it was. The internal documents at Pfizer said chemotherapy experimental gene therapy.
Oh, okay. Well, I knew it was gene therapy.
Yeah, but it's actually and then at Moderna on their website, it says this is not a vaccine. This is an operating system.
Operating system.
Yeah.
My God.
And so there's some new information that came out about a week, maybe two ago, where they finally released the animal testing on these mRNA vaccines that they were testing back in the late 90s and early 2000s. And they did several hundred animals, different types of animals. They gave them the 2 shots. Then they introduced the common cold into the environment, and 100% of all the animals died. 100%.
Well, I heard that all the elderly ferrets died after the second shot in some tests.
Yeah, but it wasn't until after they introduced the common cold into that environment that they all died. It took about a year later because they wanted to see how this mRNA vaccine would handle just the common cold.
Yeah.
They didn't get vaccinated for the common cold. They got vaccinated for something else, and they wanted to see what would be the animals, what would happen then. And they all died. Every single one died of the common cold.
Was that the one that what they did for influenza then? Probably they were trying to develop an mRNA vaccine.
Yeah, that's what they were experimenting with influenza. mRNA vaccines, yes, for influenza. And I mean, this is absolutely astonishing because Facebook keeps saying, oh, these vaccines have all been highly tested and so forth. We're under emergency measures. They haven't been tested at all.
Well, even my doctor, I checked for her opinion, and she said, "Oh yeah, they've for a decade now they've been testing them." Where are they?
Yeah, they've been testing them on animals. They stopped testing them on animals because it killed every one of them.
I know.
Back around 2002, they stopped testing because and they didn't want that information to come out because and they stopped testing they went back into the labs and started playing around with it, but they didn't test on animals. They did no animal testing at all and 0 human testing.
I know. So I'm waiting like 6, 9, 12 months to see what's going to happen to our population.
Well, Montreal has created, it's called Medico, and
Medico,
Medico, I believe it's the correct spelling. And they've come out with an organic immune booster that they're calling a vaccine. It has absolutely nothing other than vitamins and minerals in it that will boost your immune system. And it's all organic.
That's all we need to do. I mean, if you take enough vitamin D and get it into normal level, it's better than a vaccine.
Oh yeah, I take 15,000 units a day. Merope or Merope,
Merope.
you had a question. Merope, you had a question.
I do. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, great. Okay. I want to go back to your subject that you were talking about. I heard one word only about the Native peoples, and that was something referring back to the Algonquins. I just have a real concern here that you've forgotten who was here first, and that they are in huge research mode and negotiation mode and bringing the truth forward, just such as yourself, and asking some pretty tough questions. And a lot of the things that you're saying, I'm going, I don't know. I am kind of insulted about it because my background is Aboriginal background. And I do keep track of some of the things and negotiations that they've been through and the lies they've been through and the bullshit they're still trying to swim their way back up. So I kind of disagree with you that all you need is an allodial title or some of the other words that you used. I don't know. And in some ways, my opinion is that the Native people may be saving your heinies because they are still standing up for themselves and saying, wait a minute here, we have some treaties we have copies of.
Yes.
That's my comment.
And no, that's a wonderful comment. And thank you very much for that, because I've had various conversations, and I did mention that I did have conversations with various Native populations. And the one problem that the Native populations have done is they've been conned yet again. And the Indian Act, which I find, if you've ever read it, 1876 Indian Act, I suggest you can download it off our website. It's probably the most racist document I've ever read in my life. It treats the Native population here in Canada like 5-year-olds. And it actually ended with the Dominion of Canada. That document died on Queen Victoria's death and the Dominion of Canada's death. What they did is they tricked the Native population into remaining under it until 1983, where the Governor General wrote a proclamation converting treaties into land claims in maritime. And as soon as the Native population dropped their treaties and went into land claims, their treaties became null and void, and they became basically tied into the maritime system, and they were given fiat currency, which was less than their forefathers was given, because it was valueless. But they lost sovereignty. By giving up their treaties for land claims, they lost sovereignty. And you're seeing a lot of that all across Canada. They try to come back to the treaty, but the treaty is already null and void due to the fact that they made land claims. And once again, they tricked them yet again into giving up their sovereignty. And so they don't even have a allodial title that they had under the treaty, which is the land under their feet. They gave that up for land claims, sadly.
I don't know. I sure heard some different versions of that from some of my many friends who are lawyers and such, constitutional lawyers and monarchy lawyers as well, that are holding, the Queen's feet to the fire, apparently. And a lot of the things you said, I think, will be stopped by those treaties. So in some ways, I think they're saving your honey. That, we better hope that those treaties are honored. And so far they have been. So far, most of them have been. Unless they can prove, and they can, that they were out and out lied to and fraud was committed on them.
Well,
and as you get closer to the West, those people, Alberta included, are really tough people to, they're not giving up. They're not giving up.
And you're right, the treaties were always honored right the way through till 1983, when the conversion was to take the treaties and convert them to land claims. And the minute you walked into their maritime jurisdiction and made land claims, you abandon your treaties. And several cases have already gone through the courts proving that they can't go back. And once you've taken land claims, the treaty for that particular organization became null and void. The Algonquin Indians never signed a treaty, by the way, in Ontario, which is why to this day they still own that land, but they own it under the Indian Act. And the Indian Act should not even be there. It ended on Queen Victoria's death. And yet I've talked to Native population after Native population that make the claim under the Indian Act. And I say, stop it. It's a dead document. It has no standing in law. That's why they have to convert you from that common law document into the maritime jurisdiction through land claims. So stop doing that. Stand on your land. Well, we can't get paid. We don't get any money. We're this and that. And I said, oh my God. Anyways,
They're getting something. They never got the value of the land to begin with.
well, that
They
actually,
They did not get, and most people, the negotiators with that. Hey, if somebody said to you, you own part of downtown Edmonton or part of downtown Calgary, that's a lot of dough in there.
today. But back then, when the chiefs were making a negotiation with the white man to give the land up through the treaty, they went home laughing at the white man as being a stupid white man. Look, he's giving us all this stuff. We don't even own the damn land. It belongs to everybody. It's everybody's land. They didn't understand land ownership. And today, now,
And you know what? They still say that. It's everybody's land. It's your privilege to be on the land. And they were the first people that were
no,
here.
you're actually the second
occupying
people.
that land.
We're the second people. The Kennewick man was the first. And he was 15,000 years before you guys got here.
Oh.
No, but I mean,
Okay.
No.
You're getting a little ridiculous now.
Well, no, actually, I'm not. But I'm a historian.
Nobody,
And
I've not heard anybody go back to the Kennewick man. None. But I do remember the warriors standing face to face with the Canadian Army and the cops, the RCMP. What was that? Oh, 10, 15 years ago now?
yeah,
And-
it's been.
Yeah.
When I say that the Indian population here, the Native population, Aboriginal population, has been treated horribly,
Horrible.
absolutely horribly for over 200 years.
It's genocide. It's pure and simple genocide.
Well, they tried to do that. Absolutely did. Now they're trying to genocide everybody.
And
We're all in that boat now.
yeah, but I'm telling you that I feel that they will and should win because they were on that land, living there many years before any white man showed up.
Absolutely.
So now you're saying that now the white man should have that land with no question by putting this title, allodial this and allodial that and all that other stuff.
No, those titles were issued in the 1800s and early 1900s. And what I'm talking about is updating those titles into your common law name today. And by the way, it doesn't have to be white people. It could be anybody who has a land patent under their land could do it. The thing here is you're trying to, once again, well, maybe not, but maybe unconsciously, you're trying to bring division and derision into separation of the color of your skin. I don't see people's skin color. It doesn't make any difference to me what color your skin is. You're part of the human race. We are all human race.
I'm
Period.
agreeing.
There is one race.
I'm agreeing with that. But all of a sudden, you're one race, the way you're saying with this program, is that they are the only people entitled to land.
No,
Right.
I did not. I did not say that at all.
Sorry, I misunderstood that.
No, the native population has claims and actual claims under treaty that they need to have fulfilled. And I agree with that 100%. That's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about was surrendered land through the Hudson's Bay Charter and the native population that actually signed those treaties to allow the other parts of the land. Because 150 years ago, the native population did not understand land ownership, but the white man, for lack of a better term, did. And that's why they were treated so poorly. And never, I'm sorry, if you've not read the Indian Act, you please do. It is absolute horrific.
Horrible. It's horribly written. It's written to provide derision, and you have to be a lawyer to understand the darn thing.
No, actually, it's a common law document, which makes it even more horrible. It's written in plain English. They talk about any land that the native population wants to sell. The Queen of Canada, which was Queen Victoria at that time, she will do it for them. They're treated like 5-year-olds. It's horrible. They can't cut their own timber down on their land without permission. They can't literally build anything on that land without permission. I thought, God almighty, why are you treating these people who have lived here for centuries like they're conquered and now they're children? And they call them savages.
Well, they were conquered. It was called genocide.
No, but they call them savages in the act.
And genocide. They were genocided, and they still are being genocided.
Well, so we all are being genocided now.
Well, yes, exactly. But I just want to, so I'm confused. You know where the Tsuut'ina Reserve is in Calgary? Have you ever been there?
No, I haven't been there, no.
Okay.
No, and I don't know about it, no.
It's in the southwest corner of Calgary.
Okay.
They are now becoming surrounded by Costco's and such.
Yep.
And it's just ridiculous how the city is like encroaching on them as much as possible and trying to block them off and making threats about, well, we need that land, we need that land, we need that land. So where are they in the wrong right now? They're fighting to maintain that land. So yeah, so they've got getting their ducks in a row about how to protect themselves. And now I'm going, what? Now the way I'm understanding it, I could be totally messed up here because it's big words you're using for me.
Sorry.
Okay? Can somebody suddenly decide they're going to go and squat on the?
No, ma'am.
Good. Why? Who says that?
The law says that.
Who's the law?
Well, regrettably, we have a de facto government that's the law, and the de facto government says, no, you can't go squat on native land. That land belongs to them.
And ultimately, the way I understand it, that land belongs to them because it was written in their treaty.
Precisely.
With the Queen and whoever the heck that signed it with on her behalf.
And by the way, under those treaties, that is allodial title. You actually own that land from the soles of your feet to the center of the earth, from the top of your head to the outer reaches of the atmosphere. That's what those treaties did. They made you sovereign. Because you were dealing with the Queen who was sovereign, she, through her treaties, was dealing with sovereign people. You were the sovereign people here in Canada, and through her treaties, you had to deal sovereign to sovereign. So you were considered equal to her, not below. The Indian Act turned that all around and actually made you less, for lack of a better term, no longer sovereign under that act. And you fell under that act through those, reserves. And oh God, the way they described how they created these reserves is it's just sickening.
Trust me, I know.
No, I know you know. It sickens me.
Yeah. Anyway, that was just the question. I'm having trouble organizing my thoughts around what you're saying, and I'm going, wait a minute. Don't mention one tribe to me and not the rest of the many tribes throughout Canada and northern Canada and etc. So I didn't understand that because it sounds threatening.
No, gosh, no. And this is not an encroachment on disputed lands. Like I said, in Edmonton, there's disputed lands and this is why the airport in Edmonton, the old airport, It's on the Papa Chase Reserve. It was disputed. Why? Because two school teachers, okay, back in the early 1900s, conned the native population of reserve land. And they basically stole it for pennies on the dollar and turned around and sold it for $10 an acre, which was a lot of money at that time. And it's under dispute. And it's right now, that airport, that whole airport, the reason they had to get rid of it is because it was under dispute. They had to take it, and now that land sits fallow. It's not being used for anything other than storing stuff on that the government will put there from time to time. I've driven by it dozens of times since I was in Edmonton, and I'm thinking, damn, that's nice. I had a friend out in North Vancouver on the Capilano Indian Reserve when they were doing the negotiations for the Park Royal and the Lionsgate Bridge, because that land was coming up off of a 99-year lease. And one of the things Lance and I talked about was, well, he sat on the council, and I said, well, Lance, what happens if you don't renew the lease? And he thought about it for a second. He says, I guess we get our land back. And I said, so why would you renew the lease for $99? I said, why don't you tell them to pay you $100 million and then let it expire, because they won't. So he did. They went back to the council. The council told the British Columbia government, we want $100 million. And the British Columbia government said no. The lease expired, and the reserve took all their land back. They own Park Royal. They own the footings where the Lionsgate Bridge comes through. It's theirs. Now the British Columbia government pays them. Now Park Royal pays them. That was the way to do it. I said, don't renew the lease. And he said, you're right, Doug, we won't, and it's not that I came up with the idea. I just asked the question, what happens if you don't renew the lease? Well, yeah. And they're there today. That land, all the way from Ambleside Beach, all the way across, is some of the most prime land in Vancouver on the north side of the Burrard Inlet.
Yes,
it's beautiful.
And the hereditary chiefs
exactly
are really, really strong in hanging on to that, and they know their rights now. They're not going to be tricked or lied to again.
Exactly. And I thought that was so wonderful. Finally, you stood up to the government and said, okay, we won't, then you're not going to give us $100 million. We're not going to renew the lease. And they didn't. It was wonderful.
100 million is way undervalued.
No. That was 30 years ago now. This is back in the 80s. Yeah. And I said to him, I said, they'll never give it to you, but just go tell them. And they balked. They said, no, that's ridiculous. We're not going to pay that. And then they let the lease expire, and boom, there it is.
Yeah. Anyway, that was my question. And
no, that's okay. I appreciate that.
And my comments. Sorry. Okay.
No problem. Thank you. Wow, that was very interesting, ladies and gentlemen.
Richard, do you have a question, Richard?
Yeah, I do. Couple things. I missed the very beginning of your talk. Have you ever looked at trying to think for sure of the name, but there was someone in the 70s from Alberta. I think they were connected to Western Canadian Concept Party. The name Elmer Knudsen sticks in my memory. And he spent a year in the Queen's Library going through all the documents back to the Magna Carta. And he came up with some very similar type stuff. I don't know how it would differ from what you've come up with, but I'm wondering if you've ever had access to his work to add to what you've already found.
I've read a lot of, well, not a lot, but I've read some of Elmer Knudsen's stuff. Who's the fellow from Edson, Alberta? Walter Cool. He wrote Constitution, or A Country Without a Constitution, and he got his information from a gentleman by the name of Russell Rogers Smith. And Russell Rogers Smith was in the 1930s. He passed away in 1968. He wrote a book called Ho Canada. He wrote another one called Inside Canada. He wrote a pamphlet for Alberta. Alberta has the sovereign right to create their own credit. And he was then deposed by George Barr. He was sent down to Montreal to R.R. Smith's office in Montreal to depose him on behalf of the federal government to find out how badly they were screwed after the Statute of Westminster and they didn't do what they were supposed to do. Russell Rogers Smith was the constitutional expert for, what's his name? Mackenzie King, who was the prime minister at that time in the 1920s. It was the Native Sons of Canada minutes that were given to Mackenzie King, who took them over to England in 1926 for the Balfour Declaration. They were included in the Balfour Declaration at that point, not the 1918 Balfour Declaration. And then in 1930, those minutes were incorporated in the 1930 convention then, and those were turned over to the British Parliament, and they created the Statute of Westminster. And everything that was in the Statute of Westminster that pertained to Canada came from Russell Rogers Smith's minutes. And hence that's why they, in 1946, they went down to depose him to find out what they could do, what they couldn't do, what they should do. And that was then hidden. It wasn't in the Ottawa archives. A gentleman by the name of Patrick Ellis found it in a library in Regina, in the archives in a library in Regina. But because it was a proper deposition that George Barr went with a stenographer down to Montreal to do this, they couldn't just throw it on the fire and pretend it never happened because it was registered. And so they hid it. And it is a very, very telling document that he goes through. It's about 40 pages. By the way, if anybody would like to have any copies of Russell Rogers Smith's work, send me an email at themythiscanada@yahoo.com. That's up in the chat. I have all of his writings. I'd be delighted to send it out to you. And they're all in PDF format, so they'd just be an email.
What about in taking back and registering, as you were saying about the land, what about a person's name? I talked to a guy, and there's someone in Winnipeg that will do it for a fee, because you have to apply at the registry in Winnipeg, but he's suggesting that you reclaim all the versions of your name, but each version costs, I don't know, a couple $100 or something to bring your name home to you. It's something to do with the registration at birth and how we lose control of our own name.
Well, it's remedy, and I don't delve into remedy. Remedy is we're solution based here. Remedy leaves them in place, and so yes, I've heard all kinds of different things about getting your name, getting your birth certificate, all this other stuff. I haven't actually seen any of it work. I've never seen any of it other than cause people a lot of headaches and a lot of trouble.
I could show you a document.
I'm sorry?
I could show you my document on that.
Okay.
It's called copyright notice. I don't know if you can see it. There, oh, you probably can't see that. But
Yeah.
anyway, it's called copyright notice, and it looks like this. And I carry this supposedly in my purse or in my car, it's in my house and everywhere else. And what it basically says is that I own my name.
Cool.
and if any authority decides they're going to use my name, I charge them, I think, I don't know, something like $1 million every time they say it or use it.
Okay.
So what I use it for is when I get a ticket, I show this to the police officer. This is a theory. And he's going to go, oh my God, she's trying or $1 million to use her name on this ticket. I better not do it. So I tried pulling that off. He threw it in my face, but he did walk away.
Remedy. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, but that was bringing me to the other point again. When you step on authorities' toes, I guess I want to say, indicating in any way, shape, or form that you are about to challenge them. Expect to get things thrown in your face and to get some nastiness thrown right back at you, because you're a slave and they're not going to let you slaves come out of order. Just so you know, that doing all these things that you're talking about too requires a lot of strength, bravery, courage, knowledge, and a willingness to stand up no matter what.
Well, like I said, freedom isn't free.
Yeah, that's for sure. So and it's tough to do. It's
It
tough to
is.
do. Yep. Anyway, that was
Okay.
my comment.
Have
No,
you
I
heard?
appreciate that. Thank you. That's a very interesting with the copyright stuff. But once again, it's hit and miss. It doesn't resolve the problem that you still have a de facto government. Go ahead, Richard. I'm sorry.
Have you heard of NESARA?
Yeah, that's a bunch of crap. Sorry.
Well, it was apparently passed in 2000. Clinton signed it.
No, he didn't.
On Trump's first trip overseas, he stopped in Venice and arrested all 13 Illuminati families in the island of Venice, where the core of the maritime law originates, because they're an island. And apparently they're going to be taken down. And under NESARA, we revert to constitutional or common law.
No, actually, NESARA breaches contracts. They're a third party trying to rewrite a contract that that they're not a party to. It's all garbage. Sorry, that's all I'll say about it. It's just garbage. I don't pay attention to that stuff. People have asked me to debunk it before. I've debunked it dozens of times, clause by clause by clause by clause, and it's not worth my time. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else?
No, I actually have to leave now. And
Okay.
so thank you very much, Doug.
Not a problem. It was a pleasure. Thank you for coming, Eva and Ron.
Can I have one question here?
Absolutely. Please do, Paul.
Yeah. Sorry, I can't get my video up, but anyway,
That's okay.
I've been listening with great interest. And I guess from the beginning to the end, I'm just asking the question, of course, knowledge is always useful, but from what you've told us, what practical benefit and what advantage would it serve us to use some of this information? Where do you think that we would have some danger? I mean, other than getting a ticket or something like that.
Oh, no.
So where can we use some of this information in a practical way?
So this is not remedy that I'm teaching. And you can't use it in a practical way against them. What you can do is you could take Elodial Title if you have a land patent under your land, and you can update that. Or if you don't, I mean, there's nothing you can do at that point. But if a police officer pulls you over and you have a driver's license and you have a license plate on your car, you've already signed the contract. You can give him a hard time and he will write you even a bigger ticket, or he might have just pulled you over to let you know that your tail light was out and give you a warning. I find the easiest thing to do for stuff like that is just cooperate. It's not a big deal. You get a speeding ticket, don't argue with the police, take it to court and argue it at that point. That's where you argue the speeding ticket or whatever kind of ticket you're going to get. If they're going to issue it to you, just accept the ticket. Thank you very much. Turn it over, sign it in red ink, send it in, and dispute it. 9 times out of 10, either the fine will go smaller or not at all. Especially now, I've been seeing people getting these social distancing tickets, anti-mask tickets, and so forth. And I tell you, don't argue with them. Just accept it and then dispute it where you should dispute it in the court. That's where you go argue. The police officer is going to write it anyways. You can't talk him out of it, or the bylaw officer will write it anyway. That's their job. They don't care. Most of these tickets, I would say about 95% of these tickets are being thrown out. I'm in dispute on a speeding ticket right now, which will probably be thrown out. And because the radar, et cetera, that I was tagged on hadn't been
Calibrated.
Sorry, in over a month.
Right.
So, so that's where you argue. You argue in a court. You do not argue on the side of the road or at a rally or in a mall with these police officers. You just be nice, be polite, and thank them very much when you're done. That's their job.
So a follow-up question to that. I've been to court a couple times trying to get some money back that I invested with an individual who doesn't deny I invested, but simply says I don't have the money. And I found in 2 or 3 times, I've been there a few times already, the judge seems to take the position of the lawyer, especially when I was representing myself. Is that something that is common? Do they always take the easy way out?
Look, I don't give legal advice. I have to. I do my own pro se cases. I'm in court in Red Deer on June the 11th for a violation of the Medical Act here in Alberta. I was at a rally and I hugged a lady, and I wasn't wearing a mask and I wasn't social distancing. And they caught me on camera doing that, so they wrote me this ticket. And I've asked for proof of SARS-CoV-2 because if they can't prove the virus, because I asked for disclosure, if they can't prove the virus exists, then why the lockdowns, why all this mandating a mask, et cetera, et cetera. And so far, they've been very, very upset. They moved that case now twice on me. I was due to be in court on the end of April, and then they moved it to May, and then now they moved it to June. So I believe that likelihood they'll just throw it out, like they've done on a number of others. But in your case, your problem is that you're in civil court and you're suing, and are you represented or are you unrepresented?
I'm represented at the moment, yes.
Okay, so maybe you better get a better lawyer.
Thank you for that. That's good advice. Yeah, you must have met him already, because I had the same thought.
Okay.
I won't mention his name.
No, that's okay. I don't want to know. I can say I do my cases pro se. Anybody else?
A quick one here. Merope did go to court on a speeding ticket, and someone else that had helped someone do a presentation with our group. She called him and he said, "Say this." So she said that phrase. They took her out of the room. The prosecutor asked her to say that phrase again. She said it again. They tore the ticket up. It was over. But she didn't want anyone else. Didn't want anyone else to hear it.
What was the phrase?
Well, Merope didn't. Last time I checked, she didn't remember the exact wording.
And I still don't remember. I've gotten even older now. So
Okay, I find that's okay.
I've got it written down somewhere, but
you can't find it. I know a friend of mine bought Bitcoin when it was $7 a coin, and he wrote down the wallet address somewhere, and he still can't find it. 27. I kid you not. He spent $27,000 when Bitcoin was like.
He'd be a millionaire.
I think it was 3 or 4 billionaire right now. He'd be a billionaire. He still can't find. Hit what?
$64 today.
Yeah. There you go. $64,000.
tell him to hire.
Bitcoin.
Get him to hire a dowser. Dowser might be.
Yeah, that was a few years ago. He's moved around, and I think he's kind of given up on it. Anyway, guys, if there are no more questions.
No, thank you very much.
Yeah, it's fun.
Thank you so much, Doug, for giving us this presentation and giving us a little taste of what you're educating people on. I just a quick question here. Do you maybe I missed it on the website, but do the people in Alberta for the Myth is Canada, do they post events that they're hosting or like what they're doing? Like, do they have regular like monthly get-togethers, workshops, things like that, where if people are interested, they can kind of tune in and learn more?
Not since the pandemic has taken hold, mostly because they have to, in some instances, they're working, and others, they've got other commitments, and so we used to do Zoom meetings once a week, out of Saskatchewan. Brenda Stetner used to do them. I used to go to all of them. And that was what we were doing. We were teaching, doing the invites every week like you guys are doing, but we were doing it on a weekly basis. And each week we would have a topic that we would discuss on the Zoom call about more. It was more to do with how to create a constitution. What's a bicameral government compared to a unicameral government? What's a republic compared to a democracy or a direct democracy? And we get into the architecture of constitutions and stuff like that. How to create the courts and how to put your jurisdictions of law into the Constitution and so forth. So it was more of that kind of a teaching. It was a solution. These were solution-based Zoom calls.
Okay.
And we had people from all over Canada joining us on there. It was interesting stuff.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. And yeah, hopefully there can some stuff can start up here. And so just in the meantime, I guess the best thing would be just go into the website, just start doing the research ourselves. And you said and I've seen you have quite a few interviews done on you. You have lots of videos out there through the various social platforms.
Yeah.
So yeah, just to keep doing your own legwork, I guess is what we can.
Well, and that's why because it's easier for you to read the document than it is for me to tell you. Your retention level goes off the charts. At that point, you're going to retain a lot more by reading it. If you have trouble with the words, sit there with a dictionary, not a law dictionary. You don't need a law dictionary to read these common law documents. It's just plain English. The other thing too is, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to be down in Calgary this weekend on Saturday at the rally, the Freedom March down there. So please come out, give support to everybody that's going to be there. And, it's wonderful that at least people are standing up to this tyranny.
Awesome.
I wasn't out 2 weeks ago, but 4 weeks ago for that same rally, we had about 2,500 people, the biggest attendance that we've had since we started last fall.
Well, and to tell you what, I'm coming, so it's going to be even more.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Oh, my friend Chris Sky is going to be speaking at this rally, so it looks like you're going to get maybe twice as many people, hopefully.
Yeah, he's got quite a reputation.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed his videos. He did an interview with Amina M. on YouTube, and it's excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, and thank you, the Dowsers, the group here, for having me. I really appreciate that, and we could stay in touch. If you guys want to ever have me back, I'd be delighted.
Yeah, thank you so much, Doug. And I just wanted to just offer gratitude for you taking the time out of your night to offer us this information. And and for everyone who's tuning in, I got all Doug's information, interviews, videos, websites, all that kind of stuff up on the Dowsers website, www.calgarydowsers.com. So if you guys want to learn more about him, what he's doing, you can tune into that. And as he was mentioning earlier about the Elodial titles, I've put his email in the chat. It's themythiscanada@yahoo.com. And he's got a pamphlet. You can donate some money to him. It's all donations. So, if you'd like to donate some money and get a pamphlet, if you own your own house, it's worth a while to look in to see if you can get a Elodial title for that if it's on a patent land. And yeah, thank you so much, Doug, for all this, and you're doing amazing work. I know you've been doing this for 15 years?
No. This 12 years of research, and this I'm now working into my 4th year.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, keep up the good work, and I can really see this really taking off here, and more. The age of technology, that's the beauty of it. It's a double-edged sword, right? Yes. So it's allowing a lot of this stuff to surface, a lot of misinformation, but there's a lot of good stuff too happening out of this. So yeah, thank you so much, and thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you for all the questions, and we'll see you next month, everyone. Thank you.
Good night. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Bye for now.
Thanks.